So the Chris Paul rumors are swirling a little bit. Thinking about teams that can trade for him. The Bucks have already been out there. The Knicks have been rumored for the past year or whatever. Billy Donovan not coming back, and the language that Sam Presti used when talking about why Donovan is not coming back makes it seem like OKC is going to go in the process direction, at least somewhat. We'll see how hard they really go. And so I figured, why not react to some trade ideas on the internet for Chris Paul? The first one here is from a Bulls publication. The Bulls will get Chris Paul and Dennis Schroeder in a future first. The Thunder will get Zach LaVine and Otto Porter Jr. Is this a good move? I mean, it's an immediate move, certainly. Granted, the pick that you're getting from OKC, of which they have 1 million, could make the future look a little better for you. But you really want to give up Zach LaVine for Chris Paul? Like, yeah, CP's the better player, but for how much longer? I mean, Chris Paul's getting up there in age, and even if you don't love Zach LaVine, I guess my question is, would the immediate improvement that Chris Paul would give you over LaVine be enough to make up for the fact that you just traded a 25-year-old? How old is LaVine? Something like that. Is it possible to get Chris Paul without giving up Zach LaVine? That would be the other question. I guess that comes into how much will the Thunder want for Chris Paul? Are they going to want picks? They're going to want players? They're going to want some win right now type of guy? I mean, I think OKC would love this move. Maybe not love. I'm sure there'd be other offers, but this is the type of thing they would consider, right? Getting a guy who's about to enter his prime. And sure, I don't know if any of us think of Zach LaVine as a top 15 guy or whatever, but for one, he could become that. It's not insane to suggest he could be that one day. And he's still kind of young, so you get time with him and stuff. So what does all that mean? I don't know. We have another Bulls move. Basically, it's pretty much salary and 1 pick and a second rounder for what it's worth. This is the type of thing that I think the Bulls should be a little bit more in pursuit of. Now, whether OKC would want this is a different question. I mean, this is basically a pick, because that second rounder is probably not going to do much for you. Unless the Thunder would just really love Otto Porter and they think that he can do something great for him. I don't know. And here's the final one for the Bulls. Chris Paul and Steven Adams for Satoransky, Markkanen, Thad Young, and Otto Porter. I mean, the big thing to talk about here is Markkanen. I guess it depends on what you think of him. Personally, clearly he can be better than what he showed this year. But at the same time, if you forced me to pick one of these 3 Bulls moves that I think is kind of fair for both teams, I think like this would probably be the one. But even then, it's like, you know, Markkanen's still so young. And I mean, trading for Chris Paul, what does that give the Bulls? What's the goal? 4th seed in the East? I mean, again, it would be a great season, maybe even a great 2 seasons for the Bulls, but after that, it's like, oh wait, Markkanen's doing really well in OKC, and we don't have a point guard anymore because we traded for a really old one. So, yeah, I don't know, man. Okay, now we've got one from, I think this was Yahoo Sports. The Sixers have the pieces to make a Paul trade work. Future draft picks, they do. It's wild how they still have all their picks moving forward. Like Al Horford for expendable players who could use a change of scenery. I don't think the Thunder are going to want Al Horford, okay? I mean, if they're just that desperate to go into rebuild mode that they'll take 2 firsts in Horford's contract and give you Chris Paul, then okay. But I don't know, man. Like, if Chris Paul's really available, I feel like you're going to have to give him something a little better than Al Horford and lock them into that money. I mean, I know OKC is probably not going to try to win basketball games like that, which is a scenario in which you'd be willing to take on some bad contracts. But really, that would be it. Al Horford. Now, this Mike Conley move, which obviously means the Jazz would trade for Chris Paul, this one I could see a little bit more because I feel like the Thunder could get, let's say, a pick and Mike Conley or something, and then they could trade Mike Conley. So you're getting more stuff for Chris Paul that way. Because Conley can still play. I mean, maybe he's not the guy he was in Memphis still, but you imagine any team that's desperate for a point guard would take on Conley still, you know what I mean? So this one I could see the rationale in, but at the same time it's also like, again, is OKC going to want to get back some young player who they can feel good about on top of picks and salary dumps and whatever? I don't know. It would just depend on how much OKC really thought of Mike Conley as an asset to another team after they traded Chris Paul for him. And as for Utah, I guess you could look at Mike Conley's season and view him as non-essential, and Chris Paul is better. So I guess that would be the idea. Okay, so this one for the Knicks, it doesn't have an actual trade in mind. We know that the Knicks have the Clippers pick. They've got a couple of Mavs picks. They, of course, have their own picks. And they have Julius Randle, who could fill in some salary. And then they've got a bunch of random guys. Do you think the Thunder would be super excited about getting Julius Randle? I don't know about that. Although maybe they could view him as a trade asset for somebody else, then they could get more stuff for him. And maybe OKC would be excited about one of the Knicks young guys that hasn't worked out. Dennis Smith, Kevin Knox, Neil Aquina, whoever. I imagine the Knicks would not move Mitchell Robinson or RJ Barrett. So, yeah, and as for why the Knicks would do this, well, this would be, they signed Thibodeau. They're going for more of an instant improvement. Next season, we're going to be good. You trade for Chris Paul. You sign whoever, because they've got 9 million team options. So they're going to decline all of them. So maybe you trade for Chris Paul, then you sign, I don't know, Gallinari or something. You'd be the Thunder of the East. So this one's interesting, and one that I didn't think of initially. Phoenix, who could go for Chris Paul. The one interesting player I think OKC would probably be pretty okay with getting if this were to happen would be Kelly Oubre. And I have mentioned his name a lot this offseason, but look, man, he's going to be 25 after next season. He's going to be a free agent, and Phoenix has got to decide if he's in their long-term goals or not. I think he should be. But, Phoenix, a team that's desperate to just be good, they could view Chris Paul as the way to do that, and your starting five could be, well, it'd be more stuff than Oubre, but he'd be kind of the main thing. And then after him, you're throwing in, well, to be honest, you might have to throw in Rubio to make the money work, to be honest. Like, Phoenix's salary is set up in such a way to where it's tough to find the contracts. I mean, Chris Paul's in the deep 30s with his salary. We got to remember that one. But anyway, if you're talking to Oubre and Rubio, then you imagine that Phoenix's starting five would become Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre, and Mikal Bridges, and then whoever. Maybe it's Cameron Johnson, maybe it's Dario Saric. I don't know, but that could be kind of interesting. But you look at Rubio, who made a pretty positive impact for them. He's about to be 30. He's definitely got more years left than Chris Paul. And if you weren't going to move Oubre, then I really don't know how the money works. So, yeah. And then we have one from Bleacher Report that gets Chris Paul and the Lakers. Lakers get Chris Paul and 2 second-round picks. That's nice. The Thunder get basically a bunch of BS and a first. Sixers get Kuzma, Bradley, and Talen Horton-Tucker. This move kind of sucks for the Thunder. No player of significance, unless Zaire Smith is going to be back in the NBA like that, and 1 first, which is, the 21st pick. That's not a whole lot for Chris Paul. Which, hey, you know what? Maybe his market is really not going to be that big because of his contract and because of how old he is, but I would assume you can at least get 2 first-round picks for the guy. I figure for Chris Paul, it's either 2 firsts and whatever, or 1 first and a player who you can feel good about. Which, if Zaire Smith is that guy, then okay. But I don't know, man. Although I do kind of like Talen Horton-Tucker to the Sixers, because Laker fans would suggest that he is a really, really good player. Then again, Laker fans also suggested that Kyle Kuzma was better than Jason Tatum, and, well, you know what? That one didn't pan out for him. But yeah, I don't like this move for the Thunder. I think all they're getting is the pick. None of these guys are trade assets. Zaire Smith, he has done nothing in the NBA so far. Not his fault. I blame the Sixers for giving him something that he was allergic to. So yeah. I got another one from Bleacher Report. Gary Harris, Will Barton, and Monte Morris for Chris Paul. No draft picks. Would I do this if I was OKC? Probably not. I imagine that there would be better offers for CP. As for the Nuggets, yeah, I think this would be cool. I mean, you could argue that the combined value of Harris, Barton, and Monte is, maybe not like as far away from Chris Paul as you'd think. I would disagree pretty hard. I think, you need those guys. You need those guys who can make the big shots in the big games. Chris Paul's that guy. He proved he still got it against Houston. Could also be great for Michael Porter Jr. and a shooter around Jokic. Pretty sure Chris Paul's a better shooter than Harris, Barton, and Monte. But if I was the Thunder, you'd have to. I probably wouldn't even want this anyway. Like, I don't know. Like, do you think Gary Harris, Will Barton, and Monte Morris are trade assets for other teams? I mean, maybe. But are you going to get much for them? Probably not. So I wouldn't really mess with this one. I think that's all I have. I can't really find any other ones. So yeah, we'll see if CP gets moved.